Hello, my friends. Today, let's start with the fact that Ukraine continues striking very powerfully at all facilities in Russia connected to oil. Since Trump isn't imposing sanctions, we have to act on our own. And yesterday, various strikes were recorded all day long. On video, Novorossiysk, a strike on an oil loading pier. Russian ports on the Black Sea have suspended oil shipments after a drone attack. We analyzed the video footage of the unmanned boat attack on the Tuapse port and concluded that one of the oil loading pierces on the port's territory was hit. In the video, you can see the drone's explosion on contact with the pier. An image has also been added showing the drone's approximate route and the operator's filming direction. On the second image, you can see the same explosion from the other side, which confirms the exact location. As a result, evacuations were carried out on the beaches in Sochi, all because Putin has everything under control. As you can see, things are being destroyed, and Russia already has a big problem with gasoline. People are complaining about shortages, and where fuel is available, the prices are very high. And Peskov says everything is fine and the situation is under control, claiming that Ukraine is refusing negotiations while Russia supposedly wants peace. So here is his statement.
There is an obvious state of affairs in the Russian economy, which speaks more than eloquently. Despite all the illegal sanctions, and despite the tens of thousands of these sanctions imposed against our country, our economy absolutely preserves its stability and predictability. The economy retains its social orientation. The state fulfills and plans years ahead to meet its social obligations to the population. The country's economy is structured to fully satisfy the needs of our armed forces, which continue the special military operation. War is not aimless. The war is intended to ensure our security and interests and to eliminate the root causes of the conflict that now exists between Russia and Ukraine, the conflict that concerns European security as a whole. This is connected to the unwillingness of Americans in previous administrations, and of Europeans, to take our concerns into account. Russia will continue to defend its interests. The Russian state as a whole, and President Putin in particular, highly value President Trump's political will to further support the search for a peaceful settlement. President Putin is open to seeking a peaceful settlement. Meanwhile, the Kiev regime has now completely taken a passive position. Apparently, they are trying to demonstrate to their sponsors in Europe and to their backers that they can fight. But they must not forget that with each passing day that the Ukrainian side refuses negotiations, the Ukrainian negotiating position will only worsen. That is the real state of affairs, and the dynamics on the front speak to this more than eloquently.
And here Zelensky said that Russia must be stopped now, not after even great destruction.
The war must be stopped. Stopping Putin now is cheaper than rebuilding the economies of countries later. Stopping Russia now is cheaper than asking the question, who will build drones capable of carrying nuclear warheads?
And J.D. Vance commented on Trump's new statements.
One of the things I'll say about the president is that he is responsive to the reality on the ground. And the reality on the ground is that, number one, we have engaged in incredibly good faith negotiations with both the Russians and the Ukrainians. And I believe the president is growing incredibly impatient with the Russians right now because he doesn't feel like they're putting enough on the table to end the war.
Now, let's move to the front line. We'll start right away with the situation on the border in the Sumy direction, despite the fact that the Russians have increased the activity. They have had no success over the past day. The situation hasn't changed. In the Kharkiv direction, the Russians are not launching new assaults, so the situation here remains stable. Meanwhile, fighting continues in the area of Vovchansk, although here too, as before, there are no changes. And in the Velykyi Burluk direction, the Russians continue to assault Otradne, and overnight Ukrainian fighters began reporting that the village had come under Russian control. The Russians have expanded their foothold in the Velykyi Burluk sector. Otradne and several forested areas have been occupied. It seems that the situation here is once again deteriorating, but for now we are waiting for official confirmation and updated maps. Meanwhile, in the Dvorichna area, the Russians are pushing toward Doroshivka, but have had no success for the second day in a row. Ukrainian forces have been holding the defense here effectively. In the Kupiansk direction, the Russians continue attacks in the city and are also trying to push toward Tishankivka. However, over the past day, they have had no success and the front line remains unchanged. In the Borova direction, the Russians have carried out no assaults and the situation has remained unchanged for the second day in a row. In the Lyman direction, activity is very high. The Russians are pushing into Dvorichna and Kolodezi, assaulting Novoselivka, Shandrigolove, Seredne, Novomikhailivka, and trying to break through toward Olhivka. However, over the past day, they have made no gains and the front line remains unchanged. In the Siversk direction, the Russians are assaulting Yampil and Dronivka. Earlier, the Russians had already claimed that Dronivka was under their control and even showed their flags, but over the past day there have been no changes and the fighting continues. In the Kostantinivka direction, the situation is worsening. The Russians are pushing toward the outskirts of the city and trying to gain a foothold in the fields. They also assaulting Stupочки, Олександру Шультіне, Pleshiyivka, and Klebenbyk while pushing through the area of Yablonivka and Rusin Yar across the fields. However, over the past day, there have been no changes and the fighting continues. In the Dobropillia direction, there is good news. Despite continued Russian assaults, the Ukrainian forces are also advancing and trying to cut off this stretch of the front. Ukrainian forces have pushed not only toward Boykivka, which we heard about in recent days. But yesterday also began reporting progress toward Novotoretske. This means there is a chance that only 1 kilometer and 900 meters remain before Ukrainian units meet and completely encircle the Russians. The Ukrainian forces have already shown video evidence that in Novotoretske they are successfully destroying the Russians and advancing further. However, the situation remains very difficult as the Russians are doing everything they can to avoid encirclement and are bringing in more and more reserves. In the Pokrovsk direction, the Russians are assaulting Rodinske and Novoekonomichne from two sides. Fighting is also ongoing for Myrolubivka, the village of Promень, Lysivka, while they push in the areas of Dachinske, Звірове, Котлине, Удачне, and Молодецьке. However, despite the difficult situation, there have been no changes along the front line here so far. In the Novopavlivka direction, the Russians are storming Dachne, Filia, Ivanivka, and Alexandrograd. The situation here is also tough, and the Russians are trying to push forward. In the direction of Pokrovske, Dnipropetrovsk region, the Russians are breaking through near Sosnivka and assaulting Novomykolaivka, Novoivanivka, and Novogrigorivka. The situation is extremely difficult, and the Russians are gradually managing to advance. In the Huliaipole direction, the Russians are storming Poltavka. So far, the Ukrainian forces are successful repelling attacks, but activity in this area is clearly increasing. In the Zaporizhzhia direction, the Russians are trying to break through to Stepnohirsk, but so far the Ukrainian forces are successfully repelling them, and no major breakthroughs have occurred. In the Kherson direction, the Russians haven't launched any new assaults, only heavy shelling has been reported. Meanwhile, Zelensky commented on Trump's statement that Ukraine could reclaim all territories occupied by Russia.
I know your staff read the post from President Trump that he posted on Truth Social after your meeting, but in part he said this. After getting to know and fully understand the Ukraine-Russia military and economic situation, and after seeing the economic trouble it is causing Russia, I think Ukraine, with the support of the European Union, is in a position to fight and win all of Ukraine back in its original form. With time, patience, and the financial support of Europe, and in particular NATO, the original borders from where this war started is very much an option. Are you surprised to hear that?
A little bit. A little bit. I mean, this. I'm sure in my people, in my army, and I'm sure in strengthening of the in support of the United States. But President Trump was more positive in it, and he showed that he wants to support Ukraine to the very end. So we understand now that we are ready to finish this war as quick as possible, and he wants. And I want, and our people want. But he understands that Putin doesn't want, and he understands that he is not winning, but he says to everybody that he will win. And I see very, it was a little bit surprise for me, you're right.
Friends, what do you think about this? Share your thoughts in the comments. And that's all from me. So please don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell to stay updated on all the latest news. Thank you for watching, and see you next time. Bye bye.